Hola, amigos, and welcome back to Parenting 365, where calm leadership creates strong children. I have another great story to share, so let's get into this. January 1994. I'm standing inside the superintendent's office at Central Juvenile Hall. 28 years old, still new to the department, nervous, but calm. A month earlier, my car had been keyed while parked inside a secured employee parking lot. Before that, there had already been other incidents. Things that didn't sit right. Things I documented. Things I reported. Now I was finally standing in front of the superintendent, the highest-ranking person in the facility, telling my story. One incident at a time. One fact at a time. And when I finished speaking, something happened I'll never forget. A well-respected supervisor walked into the room, stood beside me, and confirmed everything I said, then added concerns of his own. And suddenly, the room changed. The superintendent looked confused, frustrated, maybe even shocked. And he asked a question that stayed with me for decades. Why haven't I heard more complaints before now? And I remember the supervisor answering, because nobody wants to write her up. Then he paused and added, people believe she's dangerous, and she allegedly belongs to a gang. They're scared of her. I remember looking at the superintendent. His face turned bright red. Not performative anger, real anger. Like someone realizing something had been allowed to grow unchecked inside his facility. And in that moment, I learned something important. Sometimes the greatest danger inside a system isn't one difficult person. It's the silence surrounding them. Because silence creates permission. And permission slowly becomes culture. Just months before that meeting, I was still a brand new officer, working graveyard shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 to 7 nights a week. 3 staff assigned to the building, 1 on each side, and me inside the control center. At night, there were no movements, no noise, no activity, just locked hallways, silence, and listening. Your job during graveyard shift was simple. Watch everything. Listen carefully, provide backup if needed, and stay alert. Because even in complete silence, everything could change in seconds. The first incident with Useless. When I returned to the control center, I looked down Useless's hallway, and immediately something felt off. She wasn't in plain view. Now maybe that sounds small, but in that environment, visibility mattered. If your partner disappeared from sight, you checked. Not because you wanted conflict, because accountability was supposed to matter. So I stepped out again, started walking down her hallway, and like we were trained back then, I lightly jingled my keys while approaching, supposedly to let youth know staff was coming. Looking back, it was probably more habit than effective supervision. But halfway down the hall, a door suddenly bursts open.
Useless.
Comes storming out, screaming, F-bombs.
Motherfucker, get your punk-ass motherfucker back to the control center. I don't need your motherfucker punk-ass help. Get your punk-ass motherfucker back to the control center.
I stopped immediately, turned around, and walked back. When I got there, Toxic and the other staff member looked at me and said,
"Hey, Sanchez, don't worry about it."
That's just how Useless runs her program.
And I remember standing there thinking, what do you mean, her program? Because where I came from, nobody was supposed to have their own program. There was supposed to be shared standards, shared accountability, shared responsibility. But over time, I realized something dangerous. In some systems, people slowly stop protecting standards and start protecting comfort. The last incident with Useless. That night I was assigned to units M and N. And yes, I was working with useless again. Back then, only 3 staff worked the building overnight. 1 officer on M side, 1 officer on N side, and me, sitting in the middle control center between both units. But this night was different. I had an added responsibility. I was issued an institutional radio, and every 30 minutes I had to leave the building and walk Division 2 checking for broken windows, ladders, escape attempts, or anything suspicious involving highly dangerous juveniles trying to escape. So when one of my perimeter checks came up, I notified both staff before leaving. Useless on N side, toxic on M side. I told them I was stepping out for the perimeter check. Then I headed into the darkness. Cold air, concrete, radio static. Everything about Juvenile Hall at night felt different, sounded different. Back then, hearing distant automatic gunfire outside the facility wasn't unusual, and that night was no different, especially when you're 28 years old. When I returned and walked back into the unit, something already felt wrong. Useless had let a youth out of his room to use the restroom, but she violated policy. Because only 1 other staff member remained in the unit, and each room housed 2 juveniles. She shouldn't have opened a door until I returned or called movement control for backup. Policies like that existed for a reason. Things could go bad fast. And remember, this was long before many of the safeguards that exist today. While the youth was inside the restroom, Useless discovered an aluminum baseball bat hidden inside his room. Instead of securing the situation properly, she removed the bat herself, then walked directly toward the restroom, confronting the youth with it, scolding him, pointing the bat at him, shaking it in his face, and then suddenly, everything exploded. The youth lunged for the bat. A violent struggle started instantly. At that exact moment, I was re-entering the unit. Toxic was already on the phone calling for backup. Then he saw me. He slammed the phone down and yelled for assistance.
Sanchez! Code red!
We both sprinted toward the struggle. I remember running through the doorway, seeing Useless and the youth wrestling over control of the bat, and then the youth ripped it away from her. And in that split second, I truly believed he was about to clobber her with it. I reacted immediately. I front-kicked him as hard as I could. The impact launched him backward nearly 10 feet. He hit the floor. He struggled to his feet and prepared to swing the bat. Then he turned and sprinted down the hallway. Seconds later, glass exploded. Because we were on the 2nd floor, the youth dove through the broken opening down to the ground below and disappeared into the darkness. But he was still trapped inside the facility perimeter. He was apprehended quickly. Useless quickly left the building for medical observation. And then came the part that affected me the most, the reports. As required, incident reports had to be completed immediately, so I sat down and started writing mine. And that's when the phone calls started, one after another. Staff from around the institution calling me.
Sanchez, we stick together here at night. Make sure your report supports her.
I remember sitting there quietly, realizing exactly what they were asking me to do. Then later, a supervisor contacted me privately, and I will never forget what she said.
Sanchez, you didn't hear this from me, but Useless is writing in her report that the youth was already outside his room before you left the unit.
Meaning, her report was shifting responsibility onto me. If that version stood, it could appear that I had improperly left the unit while the youth was already unsecured. And suddenly, at 28 years old, I understood something I had never fully understood before. Sometimes the real test comes after the danger is over, because integrity becomes hardest when the pressure to protect people becomes stronger than the pressure to protect the truth. Years passed, life moved on, careers moved on, and honestly, I rarely thought about that night anymore. Then one day, I came across a newspaper article.
Useless.
Now a veteran probation officer, had reportedly been arrested alongside her teenage children for alleged shoplifting. According to the article, store security accused her not only of stealing items herself, but allegedly encouraging her children to participate too. And I remember sitting quietly after reading it, not angry, not triumphant, not thinking, I knew it. Because that article did not prove anything about the night back in 1993. Those are separate events. But it did make me reflect on something deeper. Sometimes the behaviors people excuse early become larger problems later. And sometimes systems become so accustomed to saying, that's just how they are, that accountability slowly disappears. Girls, one day you're going to hear those exact words. That's just how they are. Maybe about a friend, a teacher, a boyfriend, a coworker, or even a family member. Someone lies? That's just how they are. Someone disrespects people? That's just how they are. Someone crosses boundaries? That's just how they are. And in those moments, people around you will often pressure you to do one thing. Look away, stay quiet, normalize it, just like they did that night. Here's the truth. Bad behavior rarely begins as catastrophe. Most of the time, it begins as tolerated small behavior. Small violations, small excuses, small moments people decide are not worth dealing with. But character has patterns, and when standards slowly disappear, systems weaken from the inside out. Families do too. Friendships do too. Communities do too. That's why integrity matters in small moments, because small moments become habits, and habits become lives. Girls, I was young, inexperienced, 2 months on the job, but even then, something inside me knew if something feels wrong, you don't ignore it just because everyone else does. And I want you to remember something. You do not have to become loud, angry, or self-righteous to stand on principle. Sometimes integrity simply means you noticed, you stayed honest, and you refused to pretend chaos was normal. Because one of the most dangerous sentences in the world is, that's just how they are. And one day, you'll have to decide whether you accept that sentence or challenge it. If this helped you see something in your own home, subscribe to Parenting 365, because sometimes it's not about doing more as a parent. It's about becoming more consistent in what you already know. Adios, amigos. Until the next time, enjoy your journey, and I have a few more parenting tips coming soon.